Hi, everyone, and welcome to week 5 of the Certified Entrepreneurship Educator Program. This week, we're focusing on brand identity for your business venture, and we're also going to start thinking about rapid prototyping. So the agenda for today is really just a recap. We want to talk about what is a brand. We want to start to build brand recognition for our own business venture. We're going to talk about rapid prototyping, and then we will discuss the homework. So when we're thinking about your project, right now you've already completed your initial ideas for your solution, and you've also iterated based on feedback. So you would have gotten feedback from your storyboards there, and I've also provided feedback as well. So you're going to make changes to your solution based on that. You've also, in the last session, considered goals for your project, in addition to planning tools such as that Scrum board methodologies that we had used as well. So we're going to be coming back to these, and you can start to fill in your Scrum board at the end of today's session and start to set your SMART goals as well. So before we begin prototyping and coming up with what it is, whether it's our product or our service, we need to start thinking about the identity of your brand, because you want that to help inform what your prototype might be. So when we are thinking about our brand, we want to consider things like our logo, our brand, and our tagline. So to break those pieces down, a logo is a symbol that is used to represent an organization or a business. A brand is what people think or feel about your business or your organization. And a tagline is a catchphrase or a slogan used to capture people's attention about your organization or business. And so if we look at an example like Apple, they have their one logo here, which is, again, an apple, which looks like a bite has been taken out of it. And their tagline is "Think Different." And their brand is really represented by the simplicity of their logo. It's also represented by the color of their logo. Usually when you think about black, it can represent things like elegance and power, but also simplicity. And so they've really had that feeling where it's really monochromatic to represent their brand. For your homework, what I want you to do is you're each going to get this sheet as well. You are going to come up with a name for your company. You are going to come up with one idea for a logo, and you're going to come up with a tagline example. With your students, they're going to go a little bit deeper in defining what their brand identity is. So they want to consider how they want their brand to look, how they want it to sound, and how they want it to feel. So when we're thinking about how they want their brand to look, it's really about the overall appearance the brand is going to have. So is it a very exclusive feel? Is it playful? What do they want it to give off there? When we are thinking about what does the brand sound like, when people are talking about it, how do we want that to sound? And then for how do you feel, how are users going to feel when they're interacting with their brand? So thinking about all of these key pieces is really important as we move forward. Students, as they are completing this, will have the opportunity to develop 3 different logos, and then they're going to want to use like a gallery wall sort of formation where they're getting feedback on their logos from their peers. Again, then they can iterate on their logos before they decide and move forward with one there. So coming back to your project, it's really important to build recognition for your brand so that people can identify it easily through images, colors, shapes, and fonts. Often when we see logos or taglines, we're able to really recognize a brand with those simple qualities. And so that's what we want to do, is to help build recognition for your own brand. So to help do that, companies will build a style guide for their brand. An example here is Royal Mail. And so you'll see here, this is a pretty extensive style guide that they have here. So it talks about the logo, the language, how they want their different logos to be shown. If they're going to show the full Royal Mail, if they're just going to show the crown. They have the different colors with their color codes here. They've got the text, so we know what font they are using, and we have all the different font sizes here to represent different pieces of something like their website. So if it's a header font, if it's content font, if it's buttons, so if you're moving forward and backwards, those are things that have all been considered. Whatever you decide for your brand, it's important to be consistent. That's how you're going to build recognition with your brand here for others. So you want to consider what colors will be in your logo, as those will likely represent your brand colors. And you want to consider, as you're choosing your colors, what feelings or emotions do you hope to evoke through those choices. When we are thinking about colors, they often are representative of different feelings or emotions. So for example, red is often associated with energy, war, danger, strength, power, passion, as well as love. Orange is often associated with joy, sunshine, and the tropics. Yellow is often associated with joy, happiness, intellect, and sunshine. Green is often associated with growth and harmony, freshness, or fertility. Blue is often associated with depth and stability, symbolizing trust, loyalty, wisdom, confidence, intelligence, faith, and truth. Purple is often associated with royalty and symbolizes power, nobility, luxury, and ambition. White symbolizes safety, purity, and cleanliness. Black, again, is associated with power, elegance, formality, evil, and mystery. So you want to be really explicit in your color choices and really thoughtful as you're choosing them to really determine what it is that you want your brand to represent and what feelings you hope to evoke. So we want to consider on our style guide the placement and size of your logo. So if you are considering creating such a website for your business, where do you want your logo? Where do you want it to sit on the page? If you're creating a product, is the logo going to be present on that product, or is it going to be on the packaging? What colors, what fonts do you want to use? And when we're thinking about fonts, we want to think about our header fonts, our titles, and also the body font. So what is the content and how are those each different? So you're going to be working through a little part of a style guide. You're not going to complete the full one, but what you want to do is consider what colors represent your brand. And so you can just put them into these boxes here. And then you can actually put in your color codes, and those can be located by clicking the custom button as you are clicking the font button in Google Slides to find the color. And you can just write the color code there. It's a series of numbers and letters there. And then you also want to consider what font you want to use for your headings and what font you want to use for your content. So you can put an example of that by just typing in a word such as like welcome to represent what your header font is going to be and what your content font is going to be. Also put in brackets what size font you've chosen, just to, again, make that more explicit. With your students, again, you are going to go through and discuss all the different meanings and feelings that colors have attached to them, and really what the primary and secondary colors each represent. They are going to fill out their full brand style guide, so they're going to have their brand colors. And usually when we think about brand colors, we think about having 3 to 5. You don't want to have many more than that, we suggest, because it can get a bit complicated. Again, we want to be simple and clean and consistent in our designs. So choosing probably 3 to 5 brand colors. The fonts they are going to be coming up with for their headings, their first initial headings, and then their secondary headings, their content, and also the buttons. So how are they moving from page to page? And again, thinking about their logo placement. So if they're thinking about it on a website, how are they going to put it on the homepage? Where is it going to be? And then what about all the other pages? So the pages that are full of content, where does their logo go for that? They are going to also create a digital version of their logo, which they could embed directly into their style guide or submit in a different form. With your project, we want to start thinking about prototyping. So we've got some ideas about our brand, we've got some ideas about building up our brand identity, but now we want to think about prototyping. And prototyping really is the fastest and most effective way to get feedback on your ideas. You're going to have the opportunity to share your prototypes with others to get feedback. It really is an iterative process, and your first iteration will not be your final prototype. It's really important that we, again, are creating these minimum viable products or our Fred Flintstone ideas to begin with, because we don't want to spend all of this time and money on building out a perfect prototype if we haven't had the opportunity to test with users yet. You also need to be open to making revisions and changes, and also listening to your users. So being able to share your prototypes with them, listening to their feedback and seeing, does my idea for my solution really meet their needs, or did I create something that I perhaps thought was cool rather than based on a real need? So when we are thinking about prototyping, Again, this is the prototype for your solution before we start to build our venture plan around this prototype. Um, but when you're thinking about what you're going to prototype, it could be a physical product, it could be a digital product, or it could be a service. So we're going to walk through each of these. We're going to go over them in more high-level detail with your students. You can go greater in depth with them about what it is that they are going to be prototyping. So for physical prototypes, they're often made of paper and other materials that are quick and easy to use. Again, cardboard, paper, and tape are your best friends at this stage of the game. You do not need anything more complex than that. It really is about keeping it simple and creating a simple design for your solution here. An example here of a physical prototype you can see is glasses, and these are just made out of paper, and they're also made with butterfly clips there just to show how they are moving back and forth. Again, it gives the idea and the concept of what these glasses look like, but it's not being built out in a functional way for people to actually take and use in a real setting. We also have digital prototypes. So that could be something like a website or an app. But before you can actually go and create your prototype, you need to determine the user flow, which really is the map of the path a user will take through your application. So you need to figure out how people are moving through your app. So to do that, we create essential screens, and you can see here, these are the essential screens for an app like Instagram. So the first screen has you logging in. So the user logs in with the username and password, and then they take the photo. So you use the phone's camera to take the photo. And then you add a text description and choose a filter. And lastly, you post your photo to the user's feed and success message is shown. So this would be an example of an app like Instagram or a photo sharing app. But you can see here that the user has gone from logging in and they've gone to the end activity of the app, which is really posting that photo. So if you're creating an app prototype, you want to consider how your user is moving from the start to the finish and making sure it's getting to that end goal. What I would also suggest is that if you are doing this, you leave out the login screen because it is a bit of a waste of a screen, if you will. So I would start at your initial home screen and then move through. We can just assume that you've already had somebody log in. And then prototyping a service. You can do this in a number of different ways, and you can prototype a number of different items. We're going to do a low fidelity prototype. Your students will be doing more high fidelity prototypes. So when we are thinking about a low fidelity prototype, you want to consider the main features of your service, and you want to limit it to 3. Your service may do many more things, but you want to choose those 3 main pieces. You may also want to create a process map that shows somebody walking through this experience. So what are the different options and how are these all linked? How is somebody going to really know what it is that you're truly getting at with your service and how they are aware of all of the different components that makes it up? With your students, again, the physical prototypes, so paper, tape, and cardboard are your best friends. With digital prototypes, they may want to go more high fidelity once they've created their essential screen. So they may want to use a digital site called Marvel app or for prototyping apps. And they may want to create websites using Wix or Google Sites to create their website prototypes. A service prototype, they want to consider what they could put into the hands of their user to showcase their service. And so they would go more high fidelity. They may start with the low fidelity prototype of that process map, but then they want to create something a little bit more high fidelity. So an example might be a video, so a commercial that outlines the main features of your service. This is really to highlight the service and the impact and to show users and ask for feedback on what the service is that's being offered. They may want to create a brochure which can detail the service for the user. It may include things like cost or website. And again, they're showing this to the users to solicit feedback. Lastly, another one could be a website. So it includes some of the same information as a brochure. It may link to resources that will help your user pay and or find funding. And again, they're going to solicit feedback from their users on this service. When we are thinking about brand identity and prototyping, both the middle and high school courses are in the same modules. So module 8 is fully about building that brand identity and brand recognition. And module 9, lesson 1, is where we're building out those prototype skills. So for your homework, what you're going to do is consider what tasks you need to add to your Scrum board to help manage your project. Again, this Scrum board is really for you. If you are looking to share it and solicit feedback, I'm happy to provide some, but it's not necessary. You also want to think about the SMART goals that you've created. So what is one SMART goal that you might create for your project? You may want to start thinking about that. We also want you to come up with your company name, one logo, and tagline. Your logo can be hand-drawn or it could be a digital version. Either one is fine. Consider what it is that represents your business and your brand. And then you want to fill out the brand colors and font on your style guide. Again, you're just choosing the brand colors and you're just filling out the header one and the content for your font. And then you're going to be developing a prototype for your solution. So we have a couple of due dates. The company name, logo, and tagline, if you want to have that up by the 29th of July. The style guide, brand colors and fonts, that can be up by July 29th, and then your prototype can be done the day after. Again, this prototype is really just for you to test your ideas out and to see what is happening. But you will not be getting feedback on your prototypes yet. That's going to inform the next session. Other than that, thank you so much, and I look forward to seeing what you create.